everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of AI Inside, the show where we take a look at the AI that is, what did I say last week? That's sprinkled inside everything. Trying to replace that hiding word because that just puts it into a negative space. AI is sprinkled into so many different places in the world of technology, and that's what we like to shine a light on with this show. I'm Jason Howell, one of the hosts, but definitely not the only one because my co-host is back, Jeff Jarvis. Good to see you, sir.
Here I am doing AI inside like raisins in a scone.
That's right. Oh, it's
Blueberries
just
in a muffin.
so delicious. It's like chocolate and peanut butter and all the things squashed together. I don't know. Yeah, your analogy was better than mine. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see
You've
you.
been busy.
Back. Sorry, I was gone. Last week I was learning how to set type the very old-fashioned way, one little letter at a time.
Yeah,
and we're all about type and typography, so it was a venture into the past. So now here I am, back to the future.
Yeah, back to the future of artificial intelligence. That's cool. So what was it? Was it a Linotype conference, or was it a workshop, or
a sad group? There's a group called the Rare Book School that runs out of University of Virginia, but also Princeton and the Grolier Club and lots of other places around the country. And they run a couple dozen courses in all kinds of things, like bibliography in the 18th century and early printing of the Bible and stuff like that. So this was a course in 19th and 20th century typography. And that means that's when the Linotype came in, and that's what I'm writing about and researching. So it was the perfect time to look at the impact on typography and design and books and so on. So it was actually fun. I was in a class with people who are professors and librarians, and I had imposter syndrome, but it never stops me from joining in, of course.
Good. That's good, because I've felt that, as I'm sure we've all felt that, and sometimes that can be a stunter. That sounds awesome, and it sounds completely Jeff Jarvis.
Yeah. You go to Italy and eat pizza, and I go and set type and get inky hand.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Still, that's awesome. Well, it's good to have you back, and it's good. I got to say, it's good to do a news focused show. I've been missing it. Take your foot off the gas of the news cycle for almost a month and a half, because we had a bunch of interviews with me gone in Italy and last week, and the interviews are great and everything, but I learn a lot from the interviews, but I love knowing kind of the machinations of exactly this development of AI on a weekly basis. So I'm happy we're doing that this week.
Great.
And I think we'll probably be doing that a lot more, kind of getting back to the newsy approach as we play around with things with the show. Real quick, before we do get into the news, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. Of course, there is the patreon.com/AI Inside Show. And we appreciate you if you go there and you help us out and support us with the show. That's the easiest way to keep us doing what we're doing. Patreon.com/AI Inside Show. You could be like Brian Morrison II, who is just as great as any other Brian Morrison out there. The first, the third, doesn't matter. The second, you're awesome. It's good to have you on board supporting us directly from the inside. Ooh, I like that. I might have to make that a thing, from the inside. The AI Inside Insiders. There we go.
The club.
And also, real quick, just to get it out of the way, AIinside.show/survey. Still doing an audience survey, and you can find it very easily. If you just go to AIinside.show, you'll see at the very top, it's called out with a link to the survey. It's a pretty quick, it maybe take you about 5 minutes, but
especially for something new like this, we can't tell you how valuable this is.
Yeah.
It's a story to go get some sponsors so we can get the money and keep the show going.
Absolutely.
And all you're doing is sharing who you are. That's all we need, because we want to brag about you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And we're not, when we say who you are, like it's not specific to exactly who you are, but it's whatever information you feel comfortable answering. It goes a long way in allowing us to, continue to kind of grow the show and potentially monetize. And there's also options, the opportunity in here for you to tell us what you're liking about the show, and, maybe some changes or ideas that you have for us. It's all super valuable and helpful. So AIinside.show/survey. We would really appreciate your support there. Let us know what you think. And with that, I think it's time. I think that it's time for us to talk a little bit about the news. So let's start off with actually what ended up being a pretty huge chunk of OpenAI stuff, which is hard. It's hard to avoid when you're talking about AI in the news right now. They're just making news left, right, and center. But let's start with Strawberry. This is a Reuters exclusive that hit a couple of days ago. That kind of actually, it's more like I mean, it's an exclusive to Reuters, but it really seems like an extension of that thing we heard about months ago called Q, which I thought even back then was a horrible name. Apparently now,
Though it was pronounced Q star because
that's right, Q star. There you go. Yeah. I forgot about that.
They're as good at branding as
as all of them, as Twitter, X, and whatever. Yeah, Meta. I don't know if Strawberry is a better name necessarily, but I do like it at least a little better. Reuters posted this exclusive, basically highlighting this project happening in OpenAI right now. The idea is that the Strawberry models would not only be capable of answering queries, but also performing deep research, in quotes, by navigating the internet autonomously. So answering science and math questions that have been out of reach of current models, having more human-like reasoning skills. And actually, friend of the show, Mike Elgin, wrote on his wonderful Machine Society Substack newsletter.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah, that's really, at the end of the day, this is potentially a big step for OpenAI towards agentic AI, and maybe agentic AI in general, having the agency to think ahead and to look for what it needs as a result of what it's finding.
Though the key to this, as I learned when I went to one of the AI events I went to in San Francisco, is you have to have trust in it to trust it to go and do something on your behalf.
Yes.
And without the knowledge of what it's doing. And I think that we're at the exact opposite spot still when it comes to AIs. Oh, I had to write all this stuff. It doesn't know anything. Oh, I guess I've got to limit what it works with to a RAG, smaller database. I've got to understand what it's doing before I can trust what it does. So now to think that this thing is ready to go out and do something on our behalf and find things on our behalf or take actions on our behalf, which is what agents really do. I don't think we're there unless they're going to show something that's just amazing. That presumes that it has an understanding of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a wrong thing to find. That's the right thing to find. Against an assignment, that it has an understanding of meaning, an understanding of understanding. And right. So far, I don't know, even though I think, generative AI can do a lot of neat things, I don't see the evidence that it's there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. The right from wrong, that's definitely a huge hurdle that we haven't really at all seen AI in this capacity anyways, being very competent, or capable of doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of like the levels of AI in a second, but I did want to point out before we move on that this model, likely the one that OpenAI was testing internally anyways. I think there was a little bit of guesswork on the part of Reuters as far as this part, but tested internally on the math data set more than 90%. And the math data set is a pretty big benchmark when it comes to like championship math problems. Let's say competitors to OpenAI have reached between 57.8% to 76.6% at its highest. And so it's assumed that what they're working on, Strawberry, is probably the thing that other sources have said, they have a model internally that tested more than 90% on the math data set. It's probably this, if we had to guess. And so, that doesn't say anything about, what you were talking about, Jeff, as far as knowing right from wrong and everything, but it does.
And it wasn't long ago. I mean, I haven't tested it recently, but last I checked, it couldn't do basic arithmetic.
Yeah.
It wasn't built to do that.
Right.
It's a word predictor, and that's a different skill set. If they found a way to combine those things, I don't think that's out of reach to imagine.
Yeah.
But generative AI as a word prediction machine was crappy at this. So it'll be really interesting to see demonstrations of that. Of course, I won't know since I did really badly at this kind of crap on the SAT. I hated that stuff. That's why I had to go into journalism. So
The SATs. I mean, I hardly even need the SATs anymore. That's where we're at least here in California. That's what someone was telling me. To the schools here, the SATs is like a thing of the past. I don't know what if that's true or not, but anyways. Speaking of OpenAI, part deux, the company, according to Bloomberg, believes that it is approaching the second level of 5 that it has identified on its path to AGI, as they say. At a company meeting last week, the company told staff about its metrics here, and they created kind of 5 different levels. There's the chatbots, and here I can throw it up on the screen for video viewers. There's the chatbots. This is conversational language, AI with that conversational language sort of thing, which we're seeing a lot of right now. There's reasoners, level 2. This is human level problem solving, where OpenAI actually currently believes that it's really on the cusp of this, if not there. Whether you agree or not, that's what OpenAI seems to think. Level 3, agentic or agents. These are systems that can take actions, and I would say this is probably where that Strawberry project would potentially sit. Potentially, at least according to Mike Elgin and what he was writing. Level 4, innovators. That's AI that can aid in invention, creating new things entirely, and then organizations. And this is really AIs that can do the work of an entire organization. Don't know what this actually means about autonomy or autonomous systems. I suppose that's probably part of agents, or I don't know. Is it?
Well, but it seems to be a mix of levels 2, reasoning, and 3, agent. And so the Strawberry seems to already mix the two.
Yeah, that's true.
Where it can do human level reasoning, and again, let's see the demonstration, and then can go off as an agent and do things on your behalf. That's autonomy. That's where you're trusting to do it. And then to innovate is to, I guess, it says aid in innovation and invention, but I guess, well, in a sense, you could do that now in the sense of getting brainstorming going.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I'm
what
not
does
sure
that mean?
what that means.
Yeah, I think when I read that, my assumption or my assumption was that meant beyond the brainstorming. It is well, no, I think you're right though. Like, how does it know what it's creating now versus what it would create when it's at this this level 4 thing?
Right.
How would it know the difference between the two things? What would be the difference?
Right. The screenshot from the Bloomberg report we're looking at is under a post from Benedict Evans, who I quote often because I think he's a really good analyst, formerly of Andreessen Horowitz. And Ben says, this is all very well as a thought experiment, but is there any prior reason why we know that these are the steps and the order?
No.
And I think, as usual, Ben is quite right there. I don't subscribe to Bloomberg, so I couldn't see the full reporting, so I'm going on this. But I don't think I need to see more definition of all these.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I realize I'm pulling from a comment that's on this Twitter thread, but I think it sounds pretty darn accurate. The response to the question that Ben Evans posed was because this is aligned to their roadmap, so that it seems like their products are leveling up. It's like this is the confirmation that we have for us about our own systems, and so we'll make it confirmation for everyone. And
or it's their hope.
Or it's their hope. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of their North Star of sorts. Yeah.
And we could be going. I think a few weeks ago we had stories. We had Bill Gates, as I remember saying, that we got a few more iterations where we're going now, and then the next progress is going to be something different. There's going to be some other view of some leap in a different way, and I think that's probably true. Gee, we've wowed the world with the talking machine, the literate machine. That's amazing. And there's a lot of things we can do with that, but we clearly know its limits, and I think its limits are probably insurmountable at that model. So is there reasoning? Is that an entirely different model? How would you teach that? You don't teach that with just a whole mess of words. What's for that? How do you teach math? How do you teach right and wrong? I don't know. It's all about teaching machines. It's all about learning. It's all about being able to do more than a programmer can explicitly tell it to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we yet know where that is. So to look at a chart like this, I think makes a huge number of presumptions about where those leaps are going to be, and if we reach them.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I would agree. This next bit of OpenAI kind of news is interesting. I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on this. This is OpenAI and Thrive Global. Thrive Global is founded by Arianna Huffington, by the way. Announced Thrive AI Health. This is an AI-powered health coaching startup that's trained on, quote, the best peer-reviewed science. Also trained on, if you are a user of this, trained on your biometric data, your lab results, your own personal medical data that you share with it. So essentially the idea is like feeding this agent, this AI system, all of the pertinent information about your health, and then being able to, I don't know, is it use the bot to converse and understand?
Well,
is it use the
Arianna
bot to...
is all into giving you advice about how you should sleep better and take care of yourself better and all, and be mindful and so on and so forth. I say that with a mocking tone. I shouldn't. But from Arianna, it has a certain woo sense.
Okay.
I suppose at that level, it's okay, but I would not. Dr. Google gets replaced with Dr. Bot, and they're both limited and dangerous even. Because see earlier discussion, they don't know right from wrong. They are just going to put in words that make sense at the moment. It's random enough the next time they answer the question, they will answer it differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's no consistency. So, if it were a health motivational coach that says, get off your lousy, lazy ass and go out there and walk. Okay. That's pretty easy to do. And Apple does that in your watch now and says,
yeah, current LLMs could do that very easily.
Yeah.
Hey, motivate me to get off my couch. Go.
Right. Or give me somebody new to ignore. But beyond that, I don't know. It's interesting, Jason. One of those stories I didn't put in the rundown because I didn't think it fit in, but now that I think it does. The New York Times said that doctors are using AI in their war with insurance companies.
Oh, right. I saw this headline. I did not get a chance to read this, though.
Because the insurance companies are constantly turning them down for things. There was a man was making an appeal for a prosthetic leg, and they turned them down. Why would you do that, right? A stroke survivor who was re-hospitalized after a fall, and the insurer determined his rehab could be done at home. The doctor found these stories more common. The list of treatments needed pre-approval. So what does he do? He turns to AI to argue with their AI. And so in a sense, our health is already in the hands of this technology, because it's not transparent. It's being done in this kind of circular way. You hope you have a doctor who's going to fight for you, because that's what it takes. And if the doctor can use these tools to fight more effectively, good. But you know that the insurance companies are using the exact same things to deny. And so we're stuck in this really weird vortex here.
Yes.
Right? We hope the doctor's AI is better than their AI. And if you want to start a new startup for AI, start one around this to empower doctors to deal with evil insurance companies. So is it that far off from Arianna saying, listen, darling? She never says darling, actually, but everything she does with the accent. Here's what you should be doing for your sleep. Okay, but maybe you have sleep apnea, and maybe you need to go see a doctor, and you need to understand what's going on with it. And the AI can't know this because it doesn't have the evidence. It doesn't have the data.
Have that particular data.
Yeah. So on the other hand, I one year I had something wrong with a vascular thing wrong. And I went to a series of 4 doctors, and it was classic blind men and the elephant. Right. I'm a pulmonologist, so I'm going to look at pulmonology things. I'm going to think it's pulmonology. And if it's not that, then right. And each one in their way. AI, I think, can broaden perspectives, give other possibilities, but it still has to be in human control here. So we'll see what Arianna does. I think basically half of AI right now, half of OpenAI, is they're a PR company. They're doing things to get them stories exactly like this. We're talking about it.
Yeah,
right?
these kinds of stories are great for a company like OpenAI's,
Yeah.
and from a marketing and awareness perspective, it's great for OpenAI because it seems like they're doing the right thing, whatever the right thing is. Everybody can get behind, keeping people or making people have healthier lives, and especially here in the U.S., we've all experienced how difficult and frustrating the kind of the medical system is here. And so, I think we're thirsty. We're hungry for things to shake up a little bit or to become more effective or more inclusive and fair. And so on its surface, something like this really does seem like, oh, well, that could maybe level the playing field. That could maybe empower me as, a receiver of health, health practices to feel like I'm being taken care of, and being noticed for for what brought me there in the first place when the previous system doesn't. But then the flip side of that is, yeah, but is it actually providing the appropriate care or
Right.
appropriate
Right.
information
Right.
and that sort of stuff.
And
Another
what
thing
does
that
it look
comes,
for
oh
to
yeah,
find out if it's appropriate? What
yeah,
what
yeah.
are the signals?
How would you know?
This is what doctors do. I had two uncles who were doctors, and they were diagnosticians, and diagnosis is a logical process of knowledge and reasoning. So maybe I got there, but it ain't there now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is this any different? And I think it probably is to a certain degree, but I'm curious your take on this. Is this any different than like a publication putting its archive into an AI agent and then allowing people to interact with the information there? Or is it elevated because, like the risk is elevated here because it actually has something to do with people's health versus just like information and knowledge?
I think that if a publication puts their stuff in and said, we talked about this with Shipstead,
Yeah.
show number 2, and says that's the only source we're using and cites it, then it's a new kind of search, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to get to information that is in a form we understand and know and has been vetted by human beings as best we can do it. I think that feels better. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I do think, like, I really do think that when it comes to publications putting their information into a chatbot that I can interact with, like we've had enough conversations with the Shipstead interview, and it like that makes sense to me. I think it's really just, and so I guess where I'm getting at is if it works over there, why wouldn't it work over here? And they seem like similar things, just different industries, different approaches. And I think possibly the difference is that the stakes are just maybe a little higher when you're talking about someone's health versus talking about an information source that, that you're searching because you want to review a product. You want to know a publication's take on a product. You know what I mean? I guess that's kind of where my mind is at on this right now, that I'm kind of struggling with, like, yeah, like I could see how it could be unsafe for someone to trust the AI with their health data, and because the consequences are so much greater there if it gets it wrong. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I have an answer for you. I guess it's just kind of a two sides of the coin that I see similarly but differently, and I don't know why. I guess is what it is. And actually, along those lines, just skipping ahead a little bit, the Washington Post is doing exactly what we were just talking about, launching its own AI chatbot, integrating Washington Post articles about the climate as the data source. And then as users, you can query about the climate, that are those answers are pulled from the data pool. Climate Answers is actually the name of this. It's been in the works for 6 months or so, and they're working with different AI services like ChatGPT, Meta Llama. So they've got the open source in there, and really just the goal being that the chatbot answers that are generated here can be backed up by their journalism. That's like their overstated goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So it has a whole bunch of questions you might ask. Does sunscreen hurt coral reefs? Can you recycle pizza boxes? Does recycling really work? Um, and that's fine. And the answer comes back and it's going to give you what they have from their reporting. And that's all fine. The thing I don't know is whether this question medium will be the one that people will want to use.
Right.
Maybe they may well. I think it's only going to come up in the data to see whether people make use of this and do they find it provocative and useful and interesting and informative that they keep going with other questions and more questions like a 3-year-old would. I don't know, but it comes back. This is we found, here's a paragraph, and we found these 3 articles that address this. I'd be eager to see what the data comes back with.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like they're playing around with it
which is good.
In a way that allows them to kind of dip their toes into what it's like to integrate their own information into a chatbot like this and provide answers, not going so wide that it's like, here's our entire corpus of information,
right.
Kind of keeping it limited. It's a good test case, I guess.
Yeah. And they're not using it to try to create more content to feed onto the web.
Yes.
To junk up the web. And they're trying to use it to get more utility out of the content they already have, which I think is much smarter.
And actually, this isn't the first AI-driven feature that they've had. Last month, apparently, they started rolling out a summary product, so a summarization product on about 10% of the post's stories. So you could interact, with the AI to generate a summary of the article, I guess, that you're reading. So they're playing around with that as well.
Yeah, reporters, I heard this from Shipstead too at my event I had in New York. Reporters hate writing those summaries.
Yeah.
And academics have to write abstracts and they hate writing them. But they're useful because they're way into the larger article and they're good to have. So that's a case of labor/irritation saving that may be useful if it's good. If it's
good. Yeah.
But if I just wrote the story, I can then judge whether the summary that it gives for that purpose is good or not. And I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, as a reader of sites, sometimes I really appreciate there being that summary. So I'm on the other side of it. Although, a lot of the prep that I do for these shows is summarization. So I get it. Sometimes summarization can be a little bit of a slog. But I guess at the end of the day, as a reader of a site, when you read something that has been generated like that, like, is it good enough, or does it have that like AI glaze to it that you're like, oh.
Well, again, the way Shipstead did it is they're requiring the writers to do it. Now, here's a tool to help you do it. But the writer is still held accountable for whether or not it's good or not.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And then finally, before we take a quick break here, Microsoft and Apple giving up their OpenAI board seats. Regulatory scrutiny is to blame, of course. Antitrust attention being paid to big tech companies and their partnerships with AI startups. Looking closely at those partnerships, Microsoft has admitted that it has, done a reversal in this regard in an open letter to OpenAI after getting a non-voting role post the big Sam Altman dust up that happened last year, which seems like eternity ago at this point. Apple was expected to take an observer role post iPhone integration of OpenAI, but sources are saying that it's now backed out. Apple isn't actually commenting on this publicly currently, but such is the case. So. All right. Well, we are going to take a really quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about a few other stories that caught our attention. Some of them actually relating to the conversation that we just had about Washington Post here to a certain degree. That's coming up in a second. All right. Before the rest of the news, we get to talk a little bit about Perplexity, my AI crush. And I don't honestly know how much I care about this, from a personal perspective, because it's not like this would benefit me in any way, shape, or form. But apparently Perplexity is going to start a rev share program with its web publishers beginning next month. They plan to run ads with their search queries. And one of the quotes I saw is, if if they, so that would be web publishers, if they are contributing a source input for an answer and we're monetizing that answer with advertising, we're going to share that revenue with those publishers that contributed to that.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I guess I'm not opposed to it. I mean, sure. I honestly, when I saw this, I wasn't entirely certain how I felt about it, but I was super curious to know how you feel about it.
I'll have an opinion about it because I have an opinion.
I knew that you'd have an opinion on this one, so I put it in there.
I didn't until this very second, but I actually think this is a good model. It's better than here, Rupert, here's a bucket of money so you don't sue me and lobby against me for things that I don't necessarily need or want. This is on merit. And this says if we used this in the output, and if they're honest about doing so, and I think they need to be because they need to cite things, then there's a way to know that had an impact. And if they make money on the advertising, then to share that on some equitable basis is a model we know from search and other things. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a far smarter way to do it than what OpenAI has been doing with basically what is voluntary or otherwise bakshish.
Making the big deals whether you like it or not. And this, by the way, would not just apply to one product and not the other, Perplexity. So they're talking this includes the standard Perplexity product, not just Perplexity Pro, and not just media organizations, also WordPress, newsletters, etc. So yeah, Perplexity continues to be an interesting service. Definitely the one that I use the most. And actually, related to that, I should also mention I did end up getting.
You got your Rabbit.
I got my Rabbit R1. It's a funny device. That's all I can really say about it at this point because I haven't used it an insane amount since I got it. The problem with this device, or just where I'm at with it right now, is again and it's by no means an original take, but it's really difficult to in the moment say to myself, this is a perfect opportunity for me to use the Rabbit R1 instead of using the phone that I always have with me. Like it really truly is an extra device you have to remember to bring with you. And then when you have it, when I have it with me, then I feel like I'm constantly like on guard. Like I have to justify that I brought it with me and I have to look for the things to use it for. And then it does okay. Like it doesn't even, really do great in a clutch situation. So yeah, but it's a unique looking device. The orange is very catching. The scroll wheel, as somewhat useless as it is kind of, I mean, it's a perplexing product. I have to say, it actually makes sense that they partnered with Perplexity because it's very perplexing. So yeah. Do you feel like you're missing out, Jeff?
Well, 2 months ago, yes. Today, after all of the blowback, less so. But you've gotten Perplexity. I'm glad that you convinced yourself all along it didn't matter how well the Rabbit worked because you have Perplexity.
That's exactly it. Like I really see, and I keep threatening to do a video about this just because I'm sure just from a controversial standpoint, it might actually do well. It is just the thought that this is not a great product. Like as far as tech products are concerned, this thing does not live up to its promises, to its expectations. It's really kind of confusing, and a lot of the choices don't make any sense. So as a tech product, it's horrible. And I'm perfectly satisfied with my decision to buy it because it was my entryway to actually really buying into an AI platform like Perplexity. And I didn't realize it at the time. I was like, oh, I'm curious. I'll check it out. And now I've grown to really use Perplexity a lot for a lot of things that, at least in my current incarnation of this business, come in really handy and really do save me time.
It's weird in a way. It should have been a business model for Perplexity as a company.
Yeah.
Hey, subscribe to our thing and we're going to send you this little free thing.
Totally. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah.
And then the pressure wouldn't have been nearly as much.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I totally agree. That's a great point.
But Perplexity, I don't know what the deal was there. I'm sure that Perplexity made money off Rabbit.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and I think some of the answers on the rabbit are derived from Perplexity, I believe. Yeah, I got to look into that a little bit more. But
Do
yeah,
you
I
see
think you're
any
right.
other AI services that are so far that are ad supported, or is that kind of news in and of itself that Perplexity is planning to be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I have not engaged with any AI services that are ad supported, at least that I've noticed. No, like that's part of what caught my attention on this is I don't know that I had really seen that before. And, not just running ads, but running ads and then sharing the revenue with people. It just seems like a really interesting approach to go for with this. So I'll be curious to see once they start rolling it out to see how that surfaces. Like, will I see ads even though I'm a Perplexity Pro user, or is that isolated to just the free users? That'll be a thing, I think. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. You put in an article here about selective indexing. I thought this was a really interesting read and kind of sad.
And you may wonder what this has to do on an AI show, but I think it's exactly about the kind of implications and aftermath of AI and content creation. So, what's his first name? I'm suddenly forgetting. Vincent Schmalbach, in his eponymous blog, vincentschmalbach.com, says that Google now defaults to not indexing your content, that Google is doing selective content. I didn't do it in time, but I DM'd Danny Sullivan at Google to see whether they would say this is true or not.
Yeah.
Schmalbach is an SEO expert, a consultant. So he said that from his experience, Google now seems to operate on default to not index. It only includes content in its index when it perceives a genuine need. And this is his speculation. This decision appears to be based on various factors. 1, extreme content uniqueness. 2, perceived authority. 3, brand recognition. And 4, temporary indexing and de-indexing. That sometimes Google can index things very quickly to avoid missing out on breaking news or something, but then may de-index it because they think it's ephemeral. Which all of this to me makes complete sense, because the web is being loaded with crap, with junk. We did that as human beings before we had generative AI. We know it's going to get a lot worse with generative AI. We know it's being used for all these fake reviews and crap. And so for Google to become selective to improve search, everybody's saying Google's gone to crap. Well, that's because the web has gone to crap. I'll stop saying the word crap. Google's gone to hell because the web has gone to hell. Well, what's the chicken and what's the egg there? Who is to blame for that? I think that flooding the web with junk is the essence of the problem. Now, what's frightening about this is you want to start a new product. Hi, Google, I'm here. Well, I don't know. Until you get into a catch-22. Well, until you're decent and popular, I'm not going to index you. Well, how do I get popular if nobody can find me? At the same time that Facebook is turning hostile to links, and not just news. The other day, I wrote a blog post on Buzz Machine, and I wrote a paragraph summarizing it, and I said, this is what I wrote, and I linked to it. And then Facebook took it down. That I was spamming.
Oh, really?
So they've turned really hostile to links of many sorts, not just news. When the news bill passed in Canada, C18, and Meta took down, now you cannot put news from news sites on Facebook or Instagram in Canada. A publisher I know there said, how do I start a new site? The way I got traffic was to have social exposure. That's gone now. So if you can't get links out of social, and you can't get links out of search, and you're something new like, I don't know, something called AI Inside, how the hell do you get discovered? So it's understandable where this goes, because people were spamming it, because this is why we can't have nice things. But it also, the implications, I think, are potentially disturbing.
Yeah.
So I think it's an AI story in impact to me.
For sure. I mean, yeah, like you said, the the AI systems that exist right now, not very long since the beginning of this kind of current trend of LLMs and authors, the AI being authors and all that kind of stuff. Right now, it's already putting out an insane amount of junk. Isn't there a word for it? I can't remember. I feel like it came up on the show.
What are they called when you feed
not
sharks?
Not
Chum?
Slop or chum or something like that.
Sometimes it's called chum. That's also taboola and outbrain and all that.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, and that is a really fair point that you make. Is like it's not like LLMs and this current moment in AI is the beginning of articles like what you see on Taboola that are entire. Sure, they were written by a human, but it's kind of the slop of the slop, it's right. and it's everywhere because they know that they can generate, a lot of eyeballs and potentially come up on search if they fill the web up with junk. And now AI suddenly is very, very good at writing unlimited amounts of it very quickly.
Yep.
And so Google, seems to be forced into a position where it has to make those decisions. Vincent, who wrote this piece, Vincent Schmalbach, calls Google's search product an exclusive catalog over a comprehensive search product as a result. And that's unfortunate. But he also does point out earlier in the article, and I think you alluded to this as well, that even from the beginning, sure, the mission was to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. But along the way, humans, not AIs, humans learned how to game the system and learned different ways to make their content appear to the top of Google's algorithms and its search product. And so Google had to make changes even then. It's just now that's what led to a severe degree.
Yeah, that's what led to Panda, which was the first major Google search algorithm update. I go back many years when New York Times bought About.com. They brought me in to consult to try to make it more journalistic, and it was a brilliant model. People asked questions on Google. They got sent to About.com. About.com had the answer. Half the ads that were displayed on About.com were Google ads. It was a beautiful business. But then everybody else discovered it. There was no barrier to entry. Content farms emerged. All kinds of junk emerged.
Oh, yeah.
And Google had to come up with a rule set that degraded the content farms. And About.com was the dolphin caught in the tuna net. And it went down too. And eventually became no longer About.com. It is now the company that bought Meredith.
If I go to about.com, does it actually Dotdash?
Dotdash, thank you, Dotdash. And what is Dotdash? Dotdash is a content farm. And it owns all kinds of brands like Entertainment Weekly, my old magazine, and People, and lots of other brands.
Better Homes
where
and
all
Gardens.
they do is create all this content to try to fill the web with this content to try to get the traffic. And that's what happens. Same thing happened with BuzzFeed. We discovered a new model. We know virality. We're going to prove it works, and then we're going to sell that skill to the advertisers. And then everybody else, no barrier to entry. Everybody else figured out how to do it. What happened? Facebook and company had to degrade that behavior, and down went BuzzFeed with it. So it's a really interesting problem coming forward is in an AI age now. How do you stand out? And I think Schmalbach's list is not a bad list of things that one should be doing. Do you have extreme content uniqueness? Do you have authority? Do you have recognition? I would add one more thing. Do you have value? And if you have those things, can you stand out in search, in where we head now? In search, in social, and next in agentic AI. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really interesting story as a result.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, it was a great read. And also kind of sad.
Yeah.
Oh, Google of days.
But then meanwhile, speaking of junk content going on the web, the next story I put in the rundown, which I found interesting, was the
Mashable, Lifehacker, and PC Mag
have a new contract. They're all part of the Ziff Davis
contract. Yeah.
And the contract says the Ziff Davis, which is a good company, I know folks there, cannot lay off workers or decrease their salary due to generative AI.
Right.
and also that AI must be done at the direction of and with editorial review of human beings with editing responsibility.
So humans must be involved when there is generative AI.
Right, and you can't use it to make
part of the
layoffs.
process.
So I think this is
Right.
a very good step forward.
Yeah,
Still
absolutely.
leaves a lot of latitude for Ziff Davis to figure out how they want to use it. But if just use it to get rid of people, we got a union. No, you can't do that. I think that's a good outcome.
Doesn't control how the generative AI is used in its editorial process necessarily.
They're going to form an AI subcommittee to discuss their plans with union members. I think that kind of collaboration is only going to be to their benefit.
Requires disclosure.
Is to create a space legally binding in the contract for our union members to be part of the discussion. Good.
Cool.
So hats off to you, Ziff Davis, for what I think sounds like a model for others.
Yeah, indeed. At a time where, boy, it's rough out there for people working in this industry.
The CEO is Vivek Shah, and very smart guy, very forward thinking, smart business executive. So hats off.
Yeah, I think that's great. A couple of months ago at Google I/O, Google showed off, or teased anyways, its vids, as they do, and then you got to wait months and months and months. And if you're, an enterprise subscriber, you might never get it. Although I think in this case, you probably will, Jeff. I'm guessing. I have faith that you'll get a hold of this.
Don't jinx me, man. Don't jinx me.
It's Vids product is what we're talking about. Back in April, announced at Google I/O. Now it's being tested out in Workspace Labs, so you can opt into it. And basically what this is this allows you as a user to feed it your docs, your slides, voiceovers, video recordings, and it lays it out on a timeline and creates a presentation out of those pieces. So you can actually do things like use Gemini to generate stock footage, generate a script, do an AI voiceover. Oh, AI voiceovers. And it creates video, not like, Sora type stuff necessarily, but it creates a presentation video that you can then go in, edit it down if you see any points that you need to edit, and show it at your next Google Meet meeting, I suppose.
So it says coming soon to Gemini for Google Workspace. Oh, this is the other problem. I think you have to pay for Gemini for Google Workspace.
Yeah,
I pay for Workspace, but I don't pay for Gemini.
Yes, it's that extra level, right?
And I don't. I'm not sorry, Google.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's kind of neat. I'm sure, I would be curious to play around with that product just to kind of see like how it does in chopping up these things and putting it into a sequential order. And, again, it's probably like having not even played with a product at all, I'm guessing it's probably the kind of thing that, as long as you don't look at it as a replacement for your need to do anything, you'll probably be fine. If you look at it as a great starting point, I'm guessing it'll be a great tool for you. It's probably not going to get 100% of the things right, but it might get things going and save you some time.
So just FYI, to get Gemini Business level as an add-on to Workspace is $14 a month, on sale from $24 a month per user per month. But I have two friends who are still who still use email on my account, and so I'd have to pay for 3.
It requires you to pay for the amount of users you have. Yeah.
Gemini Enterprise is $30 per user per month. AI meetings and messaging, $10 per user per month, and AI security, to raise security posture for automating data protection. I'm not sure what that does. $10 per user per month.
A lot extra if you want to use AI with your Google products. It's just the way it goes. And then finally, Disney teamed up with a startup called Audio Shake, and they are going to allow their music catalog to be deconstructed by AI. The stems, they say, can be used for things like remix, for sampling. You could separate the vocals from the music, etc. On recordings where those specifically, it's really useful for where the multi-tracks don't exist. So when we're talking about like those ancient kind of Mickey Mouse cartoons from from many decades ago. All that you have at this point is just the final, the film or whatever. And tools like these, now that they are, capable of doing this, allow them to break those apart. That might be useful for things like sync licensing, for remastering, new formats, things like lyric videos and other things. So anyways, interesting that Disney is getting in on the separating the stems of music AI train, I suppose. I don't know. It's interesting to me. I like
you're a
audio
music
things,
guy.
So but I do think they've got, this is just another one of those examples of a company that has a massive back catalog of things, and tools like this suddenly open the doors for new things that you couldn't do with that back catalog before, because they were just so old. They did things differently back then versus now. And now, tools like these really, really make new things possible. And I don't know, be curious to see what comes out of that.
There's a lot of effort. I went to a BDMI Bertelsmann investment thing 6-9 months ago. And what you can hear from the entertainment companies is, we have this huge asset. We want to try to extract more value from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're constantly looking for ways to pull stuff out, which is okay. I understand that, though I wish they'd also worry about, future thinking creativity more, instead of trying to take existing franchises and existing property and milking it, which is the way they think first. Because it's cheap. I get it. There's less risk. They already own it. But it's, I would say, only so creative.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. All right. Well, we have reached the end of this episode. We've talked about a lot of news. You are, of course, going to talk about some of this stuff, I'm sure, and some of the stuff that we didn't get to that you put in the rundown on your next show a little bit later on today.
Who knows? I'm not in charge. It's not a democracy over there.
You put it in there.
Here it is. Here it is, a democracy.
That's right. I specifically said this morning, anything you really, really, really want in there, move it up, and you did. And I appreciate that.
Jason said, I got to go out on errands. So, the cat's away, mouse play.
Please. No. And that goes for any week, man.
Yeah.
Anything that you absolutely want, put it up and we will talk about it.
This is inside, this is inside AI inside here.
Yeah.
Jason, you have full license to say, why the hell did you put that here? And erase it.
See, but I probably wouldn't even do that, because I go, if you put it in there, it's in there for a good enough reason. I'm curious to know why it's in there.
No guarantee.
Anyways, this is AI Inside, where it is, in fact, a democracy. Jeff Jarvis, always a pleasure to get the chance to hang out with you and talk a little bit about this topic that is so endlessly fascinating to me. Gutenberg-parenthesis.com is the place where people can go to find your magazine and the Gutenberg parenthesis. And I keep looking for the coming soon, but it's not.
I got to get around to making the page. I just got a discount code, so I'll figure out how to add that to the page.
The web we weave. Right?
The web we weave.
Yeah, right on. Good stuff. Good to have you back. Great to talk.
Great to be back,
my
friend.
And totally related to the topic of this show, I actually did a video yesterday, released it yesterday on the TechSploiter YouTube channel, which is, so Udio, I really truly do not know how to pronounce the name of the company, but they are one of the many kind of AI music generation startups out there. And I, as a musician, look at a tool like that, and I don't want to create songs from start to finish with those things the way a lot of people do. I look at it as an idea machine for my own music. And so I created a video which was like, if I start an idea the way I normally do, and then I run it through Udio, and I say, Udio, come up with like 5 different ideas or directions I can take my song. And it gave me all of this stuff back. And then I show you, me integrating it into my workflow and everything. And it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. It was like the AI wasn't, there to replace anybody. It was just there to offer suggestions, kind of, you know what I mean? And that's what I love about the AI tools.
That's the possibility.
Like, be my partner.
Exactly. When it's truly a helpmate. I went to a BDMI Bertelsmann investment conference, a bigger conference, and moderated a couple of discussions about a month ago. And there was a tool there. I don't think we talked about it here, and I got to remember the name of the tool, where an illustrator, kind of a comic book and anime illustrator, got up and explained that he could feed it all of his work. And then it would know his style, and then he could instruct it to do things. One thing I hate doing is backgrounds. It's just tedious.
Yeah.
The mountains. So it could present a background to him, and then he could modify it. He even took photos and said, "Okay, do this photo in my background style. This is what I want to have here. I want to have this seashore," but it would redraw it. Then he could put in a rough sketch of a character, and it would give it back to him in a certain way. And he said, oh, "Okay," but then he could modify it to his heart's content. And so, if you could say, "This is me as an artist," and help me do stuff, come up with that bass track. I don't like doing bass tracks.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And you're in control of it, and you can modify it, and you can create more. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, I will say, like, this is not the only video that I've done along this lines. I did another one that's actually done really well. It's kind of the best video, the most watched video on my YouTube channel so far. And what happens when you get to that point is you get a lot of new people, which is amazing, seeing your content, but then you get a lot of comments from people. And it's been interesting to read some of the comments. That there's definitely the line of people that are like, "Thank you. This is how I see AI tools too. It's a collaborative partner. It's, an idea machine." It's like, and then there's the other people that are like, "You're making a deal with the devil, and you're the reason that everything is going to go to hell." And
how dare you use a typewriter instead of a quill?
I know. It was like, do you feel this way about Photoshop? Like literally, it's just a tool that I'm using to like get ideas. I'm not even like using the audio that it's giving me. I'm like recreating it myself. So
I'm writing the typewriter chapter in my book about the linotype right now. And when the typewriter came out, people really resented it because they thought it was junk mail. If people used it for personal letter, or one great thing in one of the books I read is, "You're insulting my intelligence. I can't read handwriting. How dare you do this to me?" And this is the adjustment we make with new tools.
Yeah, it's an adjustment, right? Anytime there's something new,
Here's my wonky trivia for the day. I didn't know that until the 1820s and 30s, everything that was written was still written with goose quills.
With goose quills.
It wasn't until steel nibbed pens were not made at scale until the 1820s and 30s.
Interesting.
So geese were farmed for their quills. Ouch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just think of all the geese we saved when we moved to.
Well, they're all flying around and crapping, to use that word again, on everybody's golf courses, but fine.
That's okay. The way it should be.
Exactly.
The way it should be. Oh, that's fascinating. Anyways, this random factoid brought to you by Jeff Jarvis, AI Inside, which you can watch every Wednesday. We do this show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, again on the TechSploder YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TechSploder, all one word. We do publish this show, of course, to the podcast feed later that day. So if you don't catch the video version, that's fine. You don't have to. You'll get it in your podcatcher. Do be sure, please, to like, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you can do for this show. It goes so far to bringing in new people to the show, and we would really
tweet about
that.
it.
Yeah,
X
share
about it. Facebook,
share
LinkedIn,
it out.
Anything, any little tidbit, anything you disagree with, that's provocative. Please, it helps
for sure.
Like this.
And we'll hit you back. If it is something that you disagreed with and you want to spark a conversation about it, like we're there too.
Don't forget to go to the site and fill out the profile.
The survey, the AIinside.show/survey. Go there. Let us know a little bit about yourselves, and it's really going to help us out. And then finally, patreon.com/AI Inside Show to participate in helping us. We've got some exclusive content. Actually, that Udio video I posted early for certain tiers on the AI Inside Patreon before it went live on YouTube. And you can become an executive producer like the amazing Dr. Do, the amazing Jeffrey Maricini, and the amazing WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for watching and listening and for learning with us each and every week. We will see you next time on another episode of AI Inside. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.